Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. So picture this. It's just another ordinary evening in my house. My son Miles is upstairs finishing his homework, pencil tapping softly against the desk, while downstairs it's just me and Araya, my wife of 6 years, sitting at the dinner table across from one another. I'd love to say we were deep in a meaningful conversation, but the truth is, it was dead silent, the kind of quiet that hums in a room. She barely touched her food, just nudged it around with her fork, like her thoughts were somewhere else entirely. At first, I assumed she'd had a rough day, or was just tired, the usual day-end drag. But the way she kept dodging eye contact told me something was off, like we were both in the same room, but living in different scenes. So I finally spoke up. "Everything okay?" She stopped moving, then lifted her eyes to mine. And that was the moment everything changed, because she said, very evenly, "I think we should try an open marriage." For a second, I genuinely thought I'd misheard. I blinked, waiting for the punchline, mind scrambling to make sense of the sentence hanging between us, but there was no laugh, no walk back. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, and added, "I just think maybe we should have more freedom, explore things. It could make our relationship stronger." Stronger. My thoughts were racing and somehow slowing at the same time, like the room narrowed and stretched. There was no shame in her voice, no guilt, not even the gentlest testing of my reaction. She had already decided. That certainty, that she'd crossed the finish line before telling me where the race even was, is what scared me the most. I could have blown up right then. I could have demanded to know what she was thinking, whether there was already someone else, whether I was the last to find out and the first to be told to smile. But I didn't. I sat there a long beat, and when my voice came out, it was calm and steady. That's not the marriage I signed up for. I kept my eyes locked on hers and added, "If you're tired of this, just say it." She didn't flinch. She didn't waver. She just shrugged like she'd predicted exactly that and said, "I figured you'd say that." Then she stood, gathered her plate, and walked away like she'd already moved on in her head. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a conversation or a request. It was a decision she was merely delivering as a notice. She wasn't asking what I thought. She was informing me what she would do with or without my buy-in. Later, I found out exactly where it came from. One of Arya's friends had done the same thing, talked her husband into opening their marriage while keeping his money, his house, his steady presence. And Arya? She had been watching, waiting, imagining herself in that exact position. She wanted both worlds, a husband for stability, other men for excitement. And the worst part was she actually thought I'd be okay with it, like it was a reasonable upgrade to a plan I never agreed to. The next morning, I woke up to an unfamiliar kind of silence. No "good morning" from Arya, just a quiet that made itself at home. When I walked into the kitchen, she was already there, coffee in hand, scrolling her phone as if I wasn't 3 feet away. I waited for a nod, a glance, a threadbare word nothing. Usually, even on the worst days, we at least traded a quick, "have a good day." Not that day. When I finally said, "Morning," she didn't look up. She took another sip and kept scrolling like the screen mattered more than oxygen. At work, muscle memory made me check my phone a few times, anticipating the old casual text that used to appear. Again, nothing. No update, no check-in, no question about my day. It was like I'd been erased. That night at dinner, the distance felt like furniture. It sat between us. I tried to talk. What came back was clipped and lifeless. Okay. Yeah. That was the whole vocabulary. The woman I had shared 6 years with treated me like a stranger who happened to know where the forks were, and the worst part was how little it seemed to matter to her. Over the next few days, the cold shoulder evolved into something sharper. Arya stopped pretending altogether. If she wasn't ignoring me, she was openly disrespectful. on the couch beside me, smiling at her phone like a teenager wrapped in an early crush, fingers flying. The glow on her face wasn't for me. When I asked, "Who are you talking to?" she rolled her eyes and muttered, "No one." Right. She started going out more, dressing like she was single, all careful outfits and extra time on hair and makeup. If I asked where she was going, the answers got vague. Out with friends, she'd say, slipping on heels. If I pressed for detail, she'd grab her purse and mutter, "Why do you care?" before the door closed hard enough to answer her own question. Some nights, she didn't come home at all. No text, no call, no explanation. And the next morning she'd walk in like nothing happened, straight to the bathroom, then crawl back into bed without a word. I could smell the alcohol. I kept my cool because I already knew how it would go if I said something. She'd roll her eyes, laugh in my face, and tell me I was paranoid. One night, I stood in the doorway as she walked in, arms crossed. "Aria, we need to talk." She looked up, smirked, and laughed. "No, we don't," brushing past me toward the bedroom. The door shut in my face. That was when I understood this wasn't just indifference. It was deliberate. She wanted me to feel like I didn't matter. It's one thing to feel like your wife doesn't care. It's another to realize your child sees it too. One evening, I was in the kitchen clearing plates when Miles looked up at me with those big, searching eyes and asked, "Dad, why doesn't Aria eat with us anymore?" I froze. How do you explain to an 11-year-old that the woman he calls family doesn't want to sit at the same table? That being in the room with us feels optional to her. I forced a smile and ruffled his hair. "She's just been busy, buddy." He nodded like kids do, but the look he gave me said he knew I was lying. That night, after I tucked him in, I sat alone in the living room staring at nothing, feeling like a ghost in my own house, like I was fading out of a picture that kept being taken without me, while Aria couldn't be bothered to pretend otherwise. I hit my breaking point one night. It was late 2 a.m. when I woke to the sound of quiet giggles beside me. Disoriented, I turned my head and blinked into the blue light. Aria was lying next to me, phone lighting her face. I didn't speak. I watched. She was texting someone, scrolling, smiling softly to herself, completely unaware I was awake, or maybe perfectly aware and past caring. Something inside me snapped in a noiseless way, like a knot pulling tight. Up until then, I'd held onto a rope of rationalizations. Maybe it's a phase. Maybe it's stress. Maybe time fixes what time has frayed. But watching her flirt through a screen while in our bed made one thing obvious. She wasn't coming back. And worse, she thought I'd just sit there and absorb it. Not anymore. I told myself I refused to be a placeholder for someone who wanted a bridge, not a partner. The next morning, while Aria slept, I made a decision. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to leave with a plan. From that point on, I documented everything. Every late night she came home without explanation. Every time she dismissed a simple question with, "Why do you care?" Then I got my one clean chance. She left her phone unattended for a few minutes. I took it, opened her messages, and took screenshots of every conversation she'd been having with the men she was flirting with. I sent them to myself and saved the proof. I wasn't going to let her twist the story when I walked. Then I took the next step and called a lawyer. I wanted to know my options, what to file, how to be airtight. I wasn't just walking away. I was making sure Aria would have no hold on me once I was gone. After that, I spoke to my boss. I'd wanted to transfer to another state for a while, always stopping because of Aria. That hesitation was over. My boss approved it almost immediately. The final piece was a new apartment in my next city. I signed the lease. Everything was set. A fresh start sat waiting like a key on a hook. All I had to do was wait for the right moment. Leaving wasn't something I could do overnight. I watched and waited, and what I saw only confirmed it. Aria spiraled deeper into selfishness. She didn't even pretend. She left when she wanted and returned when she felt like it. If I asked anything, She looked at me like I was a buzzing light she wanted to switch off. And Miles? She barely acknowledged him, and though she isn't his biological mother, she lived under the same roof and stepped over him as if he were furniture. She was so focused on chasing the life she convinced herself she deserved that the boy in the hallways didn't register. That's when I knew it was time. Aria probably woke up late the morning we left. She'd gotten comfortable with a routine sleep-in, take her time, no rush, no accountability. But the house that day was too quiet. Maybe at first she wouldn't think much of it, but as she moved through rooms, she would notice the little absences. The last piece would be waiting in the kitchen where she keeps her mornings. I set an envelope on the counter right beside the coffee machine she uses every day, exactly where her hand would land. Inside were divorce papers, and on top a small, sticky note in my handwriting. I hope you find the freedom you wanted. I can only imagine her reaction, and I didn't need to. That was the point. After I left, Aria never called. Not once. No reach out. No performative check-in. If any part of her missed me, or the life we'd built, it wasn't enough to move a fingertip. The only time I heard from her was through a lawyer. Not a message. Not a voice. A formal letter with demands lined up like a list. What did she want? Money. Not a conversation. Not accountability. A payout. Aria wasn't interested in fighting for Miles. He was never her son in the legal sense, and she'd never truly stepped into motherhood in the practical sense. When I walked away, she didn't even pretend to want custody. But what she did want was my money. Her lawyer's letter spelled it out. A lump sum to compensate for the years of marriage, alimony despite her being perfectly capable of working, and, most ridiculous, half my assets. She actually believed that after everything, I'd be responsible for maintaining her lifestyle. The entitlement would have been funny if it hadn't been so revealing. She wasn't asking for fair. She was asking to be rewarded for treating me like I was disposable. I had no intention of playing that game. Walking into that courtroom, I already knew the shape of the ending. I'd spent months preparing, gathering proof to make sure she wouldn't get a single cent. I had documented the late nights, the indifference, the blatant disrespect. I had the screenshots, her messages with other men, showing this wasn't a vague emotional drift. She'd stepped out long before she suggested openness. When my lawyer laid it all out, it wasn't even a fight. The judge looked at the file and ruled in my favor. Aria got nothing. She had spent so long acting like I was interchangeable, convinced I'd either stay and tolerate it or leave and still pay for the privilege. She gambled on indifference and lost everything. She had no one to blame but herself. It's been over 2 years since Miles and I packed up and left that house. 2 years of quiet doors and earned peace. In all that time, Aria never reached out. She was fine with the silence, and I moved forward. I won't say I'm fully healed. Grief for a life you almost had is strange, but I'm better. I stopped waiting for apologies or late realizations. I made peace with the fact that there would be no closure from her side, only the closure I built myself. Then, out of nowhere, my phone rang while I was making dinner. Her name lit the screen. Aria. I don't know why I hadn't deleted it. I stared at it, thumb hovering, unsure whether to answer or let it fade out. People like Aria only call when they want something. I picked up. Ethan? Her voice was different. None of the old certainty, none of the dismissiveness she wore like cologne when she walked away. I didn't say anything. I waited. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I let the words hang between us. I could hear her hesitate, like she wasn't sure if I'd hang up or let her continue. I was selfish, she whispered. I thought you'd always be there. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I closed my eyes and inhaled. There it was, 2 years late. She paused, then said what I knew would come. I miss you. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. I exhaled and asked evenly, do you miss me? Or do you miss the fact that I loved you even when you didn't deserve it? The silence on the line answered for her. She tried again, voice breaking. "Ethan, please." But I had already made up my mind a long time ago. I wasn't that man anymore, the one who waited, who hoped, who allowed himself to be an afterthought in his own marriage. "Aria, I hope you heal, but I'm not coming back." I hung up, and for the first time in years, I felt free.